Hey guys, Omni here. Just got finished watching Enola Holmes, the latest Netflix original film that landed on the platform earlier this week. So I know I'm a little bit late getting to this, but I apologize. It's been a little bit of a crazy week. We reacted to the trailers for this when they first came out. I love the Sherlock stories, of course. Most recently, I really like the adaptation done by Benedict Cumberbatch and gang there. This looked intriguing. And of course, the cast itself was a huge draw for me. Henry Cavill playing a role that I never would have even pictured him in as Sherlock Holmes himself in this was a lot of fun, and it definitely intrigued me. It made me at least want to definitely check this out to see how his performance landed. And Millie Bobby Brown playing the titular character, the lead character of this Enola Holmes. This is an adaptation of a 2006 young adult novel by Nancy Springer, who introduces this character that did not exist in the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle stories originally. So it does raise that concern, especially when you kind of create this character in a pre-existing thing that says such an iconic legacy behind it with this modern lens. Of course, this being about a young female trying to grow into her own, fight against societal norms and become her own person. I was like, okay, this can easily be done really well or be really ham-fisted. And that was my only concern about this, because I've never read the novels themselves, so I don't know how it was presented there. So I also cannot commentate on how well this was adapted from the actual stories themselves. This movie was directed by Harry Bradbeer. Not familiar with any of his work, but I thought he did a fantastic job in this, because I liked the direction of it, the pacing of it, the editing, the way everything was handled between the performances and just the progression of the story and the style. I just really liked the story. I gotta say, by the end of this, it completely alleviated any of the concerns that I had about this, because obviously you can feel the social political commentary that's in there, and it's not ham-fisted. As we saw in the trailers for this movie, Enola is raised by her mother, played by Helena Bonham Carter, and at least you kind of avoid the Mary Sue problem that has been a huge thing that has been plaguing female characters in recent films, and they completely disregard that and do what I feel like is proper character development. We get a lot of montages, a lot of flashbacks, a lot of setups for a lot of her skills, and there's a lot of things she's still not even great at it, most of which is the combat. She has been raised to fight, and she can, for the most part, hold her own. But there are some things that she's still trying to learn, and you see that progression throughout the story, and it's really well handled. And there's like a really fun payoff with that towards the end, in one of the climax situations. Of course, she lives in the shadow of her brothers who have already made their mark on the world, Mycroft and Sherlock. And so she's been raised pretty much in isolation, raised with this idea and raised by her mother to kind of develop her own personality and think for herself and be able to take care of herself. So whenever her mother disappears, she's left to try to find out this mystery left behind, to follow the breadcrumbs to find out what happened to her mother. And there's this kind of struggle between the brothers and her on how to handle the situation, because their mother going missing causes them to reel back in from their lives to try to figure out what to do with their little sister. Mycroft, of course, being the stick in the mud that he is, he wants her to just fall in line, follow the shoes, the blueprints that is just handed in front of her. Where on the opposite side is Sherlock really kind of come into his own, because as we know, the character of Sherlock is very detached, and we see him kind of develop this fascination with Enola because they have a lot of similarities, and he has fun with that, and he's definitely on her side, and that's what I liked about it, because you had these polarizing characters themselves in their nature from the original stories between Sherlock and Mycroft. And I like the way they develop it in here, as it kind of builds and molds our core character, Enola, in a realistic kind of way. And I like that driving force, because he doesn't force anything onto her. He lets her go on her own journey and find her own way while doing what he can to help her as well. It's a lot of fun. Their entire dynamic is well played out. And honestly, surprisingly enough, Henry Cavill does a really good job in this. He plays the kind of detached character very well, because he can be very good at playing stoic. But there's some moments where the armor cracks, and he does a really good job. It's very heartfelt in this. I gotta say, it was just a fun journey. But of course, the mother's disappearance is just kind of the inciting incident. She gets into a whole other thing, and I'm not going to go into any of the spoilers of what the movie is really about. But that's just really the inciting incident, because it goes down and Enola finds herself in this vast conspiracy going on within London. And it kind of brings us into contact with a lot of fun and interesting characters, both friends and foes. And it's just a fun journey. It was a good movie. I like the Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide kind of a fourth wall breaking narration where she kind of explains certain things her mother had taught her in the past, things that we didn't know, the way she pieces things together, the way she comes up with her plans. It's really fun, because there are some moments where it's just like, okay, she's just staring at the camera in the middle of some of the scenes. But since they've built up that she does that and she talks to the audience a lot throughout this, it just never really broke any of the immersion that I had in this. And it was a lot of fun. It really was. By the end of the film, I was like, oh, well, dang, it's over. Are we going to see some more of this? Of course, apparently there's 5 other stories. This is based on the first book, from what I can kind of gather from what I've looked into it so far. So there's 5 other Enola Holmes stories that they could tell and see where it branches out from there. There's definitely kind of this idea of continuation that goes on in it, but it's self-contained, like any of the other Sherlock stories. It's self-contained, so it's not like you're going to get to the end of this and wonder, well, did they really resolve that? I think there's like one thing that just they never quite touch on, but I'm, again, not going to tell you what that is. It's a fun ride. The entire cast in this was just pleasantly surprising. Millie Bobby Brown did a fantastic job in this. Of course, Henry Cavill was just charming as the beautiful man that he is. But it's one funny thing about the characters, there's some scenes where you're like, my God, Sherlock is shredded. No matter how many layers he has on, there's just some suits that he wears where you cannot hide those giant guns of his. Sam Claflin, playing Mycroft, just does a fantastic job of just playing this character that you just want to shake your fist at. Helena Bonham Carter, for what we see of her, does a fantastic job in this. And of course, Gorman manages to show up in a fairly key role. Of course, I feel like he gets typecast sometimes, though he does get to play some fun characters here and there, but he does a really good job in this. Fiona Shaw, who was Petunia Dursley in the Harry Potter movies, pops up in this as well. There's some fun people you see sprinkled in throughout the movie. The casting in this was really well handled, and I like the way they kind of honored some of the original characters from the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle stories, as well as building out this new world, this new character, in a very tasteful way. I really liked the approach to this, because this, like I said before, this could have easily been very forced, very heavy-handed, and very clunky, and it never felt like that. And it even fights against that kind of preconception. And I think with going into it, they know some people are going to feel that way. And there's like some key parts of the middle story, the development in this, that really kind of push against that idea that we're all kind of worried about. And I think it balances it out. And it just tells a really well-rounded story, well-developed characters. And it was just a lot of fun. Of course, this is for a younger audience, so it's going to be a little cheeky. It's going to be a little whimsical and wholesome, and some fun little quirky bits in it. So it is what it is. I really enjoyed it. So it has my recommendation. So if it interests you at all, I definitely think you should check it out. It's on there right now. Let me know your thoughts if you've watched it. We'll carry on the conversation after the video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys next time. Take care, everybody.